to be able to speak about two incredible personalities from the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I find it really interesting that we have these two personalities in particular, which will be Vamsivadana Thakura and Shyamananda Pandit. And we'll get into why they're both so interesting and why I feel that they're so interesting that their appearance days are coming in just a few days on the full moon of this spring month. But first, of course, we need our Mangala Charana. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So in just a couple of days, the wonderful significance is that it's the springtime Ras dance of Shri Krishna, his Vasant Ras. So we have the autumn ones and we have the spring dances. And so this full moon celebrates all of those spring Ras dance pastimes. And these two personalities share their appearance day on that day, Vamsivadana Thakura and Shyamananda Pandit. So what I find so incredibly interesting is that they both have such a deep and almost mysterious esoteric connection to these Ras dance pastimes. So we'll start, of course, with Vamsivadana Thakura, because his biography, as we have it, is slightly shorter than the renowned, famous, and really long pastimes of Shyamananda Thakura. So Vamsivadana Thakura was born in Koladweep, which is the present-day town of Navadweep Dham. Shri Navadweep Dham ki jai. His father's name was Chakari Chattopadhyay, and in some cases he was known as Madhavadas, and his mother's name was Chandrakala Devi. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu travels through Kulia, and he travels and he decides that he will go back and forgive everyone who ever committed any mistakes ever. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taken sannyas at this point. He goes and he's traveling and he goes to Puri, but he comes back. And this place becomes known as Aparad Bhanjan. And we spoke about it before in the pastimes of Devananda Pandit. And he goes to Kulia, and during this time, he's staying at the house of Madhavadas. Some sources say he stayed there for 11 days. Some say he stayed there for 7 days, but he was there for a few days. And at that time, this place is known as Aparad Bhanjan because all of the aparads, all of the mistakes, all of the faults were completely forgiven. It becomes known as the place of amnesty, which I really love the poetry that accompanies the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he goes to this wonderful place and he stays at the home of Madhavadas, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is present and Advaita Acharya is present. And it is said that they are both present at that time at the birth of Vamsivadana Thakura. So Vamsivadana Thakura, he appears in this house, and he is known to be, according to Sri Gaur Ganadesh Dipika, which gives us all of the mystical insights into the previous personalities and the characteristics of all the Vaishnava Acharyas. He is known to be the incarnation of Sri Krishna's Vamsi, or his flute. So this flute, also everything is spiritualized in Sri Vrindavan Dham. So no one wants to be left behind when Sri Krishna comes in order to spread this love of God all throughout the planet, inundating the entire world. No one wants to be left behind. So many people, when they ask Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they said, you say you are Krishna, but Krishna always has a flute. Where is your flute? And so he often says, this mridanga is my flute. Sometimes we hear that even the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, this holy name, is known as the resounding flute song of Sri Krishna in Kali Yuga. But the flute in particular, that personality, his Vamsi, says, I don't want to be left behind. So he takes birth in Koladvip and is known as Vamsivadana Thakura. After Mahaprabhu, some say after the disappearance of Mahaprabhu, and some say immediately after Mahaprabhu takes sannyas. So even after he is born, grows up, everything happens very quickly, and he is sent to the home of Sachi Devi and Vishnupriya. And he's sent to them as a protector and servant. And so in that home of Sachi Mata and Vishnupriya, Vamsivadana Thakura engages himself in the worship of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Krishna. And he becomes so dear to Vishnupriya Devi. And he always helps her and Sachi Mata. And he tries to keep them enlivened and enthused, even in their immense separation from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was quite a profound poet, and he would write songs with deep mellows of devotion. He wrote one song describing the lamentation and the mood of separation that the devotees had upon Mahaprabhu taking sannyas. And that's such a deep pastime. Gaur Govinda Maharaj describes that particular pastime at great length. It's described at great length in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, in Sri Chaitanya Mangal, in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and all of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. They expertly describe this particular pastime of Mahaprabhu taking sannyas because it is so mysterious. But for us devotees, it's also quite sad. We spoke about Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Little Gopal, when he was a boy, Mahaprabhu stayed in his home. And he thought with such disappointment, I heard that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Vishwambar would go dancing through the streets of Navadvip, through Nadia, with his Nagar Sankirtan, his street kirtan, and he would sing this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. But he would be decorated with a beautiful dhoti with lots of pleats. He would have long, curling, blackish hair. His face would be decorated with sandalwood. He would have a long flowing garland with 5 kinds of flowers. He would be decorated with a top knot, with strings of pearls and gunja berries, all kinds of things, beautiful flowers. But now I've been bereft of that vision. How could I have missed it? Now I see Mahaprabhu with a shaved head, no beautiful curling hair. He looks so austere. His body is very lean and thin, and he wears a shortened dhoti, the lungi of a sannyasi. And so Gopal Bhatta Goswami laments even as a child about having missed that beautiful darshan of Nimai Pandit, Nimai of Nadia. So much so that Lord Chaitanya appears to him in a dream and personally gives him this darshan, a dream that wasn't a dream that was more of a vision. And he appears to him in that form that the devotee desires to see most. And for me, it's such a wonderful lesson that Krishna is not hard-hearted. This is such a mysterious section where Mahaprabhu takes sannyas. There's such crying and lamentation. Vamsivadana Thakura speaks in one poem about the difference in appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In fact, the barber who cut Mahaprabhu's hair at Katwa, he throws his scissors in the Ganga. He says, I'll never take up this profession ever again. I can't believe what I've done. Somehow, the Lord's hair is renowned throughout the entire universe and in all three worlds. And somehow I've had the audacity to cut his free-flowing hair. Who am I? Why would I? He says, I'll never do this again. And Vamsivadana Thakura describes that barber's lamentation. And he describes this Keshav Bharati. He struck us all with a thunderbolt on the head by giving this sannyas mantra to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now we'll never be able to see him as he was, proud, striding through the streets with a gait like a maddened elephant. So it's such austerity, looking at the Lord the way we're not used to seeing him. Sometimes I get messages from other devotees and they say, do you have any advice? They've repainted our deities in our temple. And now I look at them and they don't look the same. Do you have any advice? What do I do? And I think Krishna plays such funny tricks. He does such amazing things to give us some insight into these pastimes. How can we begin to understand what all of the devotees might have been feeling, looking at Nimai, beautiful, charming face? Of course, when is the Lord not charming? He still must have been charming as a sannyasi. This handsome young man now taking up this austere life of tapasya. But he doesn't look the same. But we can get a little bit of insight if we've ever experienced looking at deities one way. And then even a new pujari comes in and dresses them a little differently. And we think, okay, this is going to take some getting used to. We've gotten used to looking at the color of the deity's hands a certain way. And they look so soft. And then a slight change and our whole mood is different. But just as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave that glorious vision to Gopal Bhatta, even as a little boy, if we have faith and if we have that devotion, we can call out to the Lord. We can call out to Krishna, oh, my friend, I'm used to seeing you a certain way. And now you seem to have changed your appearance. You've gotten a different hairstyle. You've put on a little different makeup. Things are a little bit different. But I know that you can appear in the way that is most dear to my heart. And if we have that faith, then I am sure, I'm so sure, like Krishna has done time and time again, he will find a way to appear to us in the vision that we hold most dear. In his Rudra Gita, Sri Rudradev, Mahadev Shankar himself, Lord Shiva, he recites so many of the glorious transcendental qualities of Sri Krishna. But in that Rudra Gita in Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, oh my Lord, please give me the darshan of your form that your devotees hold most dear. This is the only boon that I pray for. This is the ultimate gift. So if we are finding ourselves holding a form of Krishna most dear in our hearts, if we have a form of Krishna that is our Ishtadev, that is the Lord of our hearts, that we hold most dear, we should consider ourselves to be so fortunate. The most fortunate. We've found some attraction to Krishna. This is what everyone is praying for. This is the absolute culmination of all tapasya. The greatest boon of our lives is just to have some attraction a heartfelt deep attraction to some form of Krishna. And then to take it one step further, imagine we have the opportunity to feel the highest emotional sentiments. We can feel separation from that form of Krishna. We can feel some lamentation from that specific form of Sri Krishna. This is the wealth of the devotees. Their bhav, their emotion, their experience. That word anubhava can mean emotion, but it can also mean experience. But this is the crest jewel of the qualities of devotees, that they might have some anubhav, that they might have some experience with Krishna. How amazing that just by his own mercy and his own sweet will, through no qualification of ours. Because to be honest, we have no qualification, but that becomes our qualification. Through no fault of our own, Krishna has decided, no problem, I'll show up in your life. I'll make a bond, a connection with you. And then we have the opportunity to miss him, which is not always fun when we're going through it. That missing doesn't feel so great. It doesn't feel so ecstatic. But when we read these pastimes, when we find out about the lives of these acharyas, this is what we get. We see how they have all of these transcendental waves, highs and lows. Vamsivadana Thakura wrote about them. And without the blessing of a pandemic, without the blessing of the mercy of Sri Krishna and the pastimes that he's currently having with all of us, how would we ever get to know? How would we ever get to understand the mellows that these devotees are experiencing when they say they miss the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? When they say they miss their Nimai? How would we know if we don't also miss Krishna? If we don't miss our Gaurachandra? Oh, my Gaurachandra, I've served you. Oh, my Mahaprabhu, I may have worshipped you on the altar. I may have seen you. I may have been used to taking darshan at a particular time on a particular day. And now those times are away from me. But now we have those unmanifest pastimes. Krishna has manifest pastimes and unmanifest pastimes. And those are very difficult for us to understand. Except for, and unless, we have something like a pandemic. And then we're not in the temple. We're not in kirtan anymore. But then we have a dream. Has that happened to any of us during this pandemic? I have a dream that I was in kirtan again with all of our friends, and it was a festival. And the deities opened, and there was such darshan, and there was amazing prasadam. What our acharyas say is that whenever and wherever Krishna reveals himself, manifests himself, he's always transcendental, complete, perfect, and fully present. So even in a dream, now we have some understanding, just a minute understanding of unmanifest pastimes. We can't be there physically, but somehow our subtle bodies are running to be with Krishna and all of our devotee friends again. So in this way, Vamsivadana Thakura would worship the form of Mahaprabhu with Vishnu Priya. And he established this worship of Mahaprabhu. And he established the worship of also a small deity of Krishna known as Prana Vallabha Krishna, the love of my life, which I really love Krishna consciousness, because where else do we find that we address God, Prana Vallabha, which just means love of my life. We can address him as Govinda, which means you who give pleasure to my heart and my senses and everything that I have. Krishna, oh, all attractive one. Oh, Vishwambar, oh, maintainer of all the three worlds. no longer is he just greatest of the great. So Vamsivadana Thakura establishes this worship. And this deity of Mahaprabhu that was worshipped along with Vishnupriya, this deity was given to him after Vishnupriya left her pastimes. And it is said that underneath, on the base of this deity, is carved the name Vamsivadana. So let's see if I can try this. Can we see? Do you see him? Can we see him? Is he there? There he is. So this is Dameshwar Mahaprabhu. And he's very wonderfully the deity who was worshipped by Vamsivadana Thakura and Vishnupriya Devi. And he's so sweet, so incredibly beautiful, just giving blessings and giving mercy, all the love of God. And he's often dressed in very unique ways. Sometimes he looks like this, where he almost looks like he just came home from a long day at work. You see his chatters hanging just beside him. Sometimes he's dressed in a wonderful kurta and a nice dhoti, and he just looks like, oh, I've just come home ready to have a nice evening meal. Sometimes he's dressed in a sari, manifesting so many unique pastimes. But this deity is the sweetheart of all of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So such a wonderful and unique deity. So that's the deity of Vamsivadana Thakura and Vishnupriya Devi. Now we have to move on to Shyamananda Pandit, who is an absolute favorite of all of the devotees. Shyamananda Pandit was so humble. He's called Shyamananda Prabhu, Shyamananda Thakur, Shyamananda Pandit. The Pandit at the end of his name means he was incredibly knowledgeable, so well versed in all kinds of pastimes and in all kinds of Shastra. And yet he displays such extreme humility. So Shyamananda Pandit was born in a village in Odisha called Ambuya Darinda. Shyamananda's father was named Sri Krishna Mondal and his mother's name was Durika. Because the couple had lost several children at birth, they named this child Dukhi. Dukhi means sad or miserable. And their thinking behind this, the thought process was, we've lost so many children, but if we name this child Dukhi, then maybe Yamarajji will see that he's so miserable and he'll leave him alone. He'll see that he's so sad and he'll acknowledge that he's so miserable. He'll just leave him alone. He won't take him. So this was in hopes that the child would live. Dukhi does live. And at a very young age, he displays such intense moods of renunciation. He hears of the great devotee Hridaya Chaitanya. And he wants to go and take initiation from him. He's quite young and his parents are a little bit stunned, but they're also happy. They're happy that he's taking up this process of Krishna consciousness from the time he was very young. He was so fond of hearing the pastimes of Gaur-Nitai. He is one of the second generation devotees. So Mahaprabhu had already wound up his pastimes. And he hears of Hridaya Chaitanya, and he wants to take initiation from him. And when I heard about him at a young age wanting to take initiation and his parents being very happy, I remembered feeling that way about Gaur Govinda Maharaj. My parents are disciples of Gaur Govinda Maharaj. My sister and my eldest brother are also disciples of Gaur Govinda Maharaj. And so I kind of grew up with Gaur Govinda Maharaj and his lectures and teachings in my life, right alongside Srila Prabhupada. And that was kind of he was such a lion-hearted preacher, often so strict, so eager to give the full culture of Vaishnavism, but also with his disciples, one-on-one. He could be so sweet-natured, so wonderfully like a parent. And so when I was about 10, I had asked my parents, I said, that's what I would like. I would like to take initiation from Gaur Govinda Maharaj. So when Gaur Govinda Maharaj was at the airport in New York, he was leaving New York. And I gathered up all of the courage in my full 10-year-old body. And I asked him what he thought about it. And he said, you chant 16 rounds. You make your faith strong like Prahlad Maharaj so that no one can break it. Make your faith strong like a pillar so it becomes unshakable. So then I'll come back and we'll see. And then he left America. And then he went to India. And then he left the planet and didn't come back. So recently, I was talking to Nandi, my daughter, and she was talking about japa. And she is up to 2 rounds a day. And she said, I feel like this is a big accomplishment. I said, it is. It's a huge accomplishment. She said, Mom, when you were 10, how many rounds were you chanting? I said, don't ask me that question. And she said, no, I want to know, how many rounds were you chanting? I said, 16. She said, well, why? So then I told her the story and I said, but at 10, it's not necessary. I said, what's necessary is for you to love Krishna with all your little heart. Have a relationship, however you can. I said, so if you can chant those 2 rounds, just chant them as best as you can. Just chant them with all the love you have. And that's more than perfect. She didn't look so convinced, but I'm happy and pleased to say that she did settle at 2. She's like, maybe I'll move it up as I get older. I said, that's the way. You want to do what you can be consistent with. Like that's the best thing, is to just be consistent with it. So she has been consistent. She also kind of monitors herself with it. So to see how these 2nd and 3rd generation children do things, it's kind of amazing. Likewise, Shyamananda Pandit, 2nd generation devotee, he has from the very beginning an affinity for the glories of Gaur Nitai. So his parents give him permission, journeys to see Hridaya Chaitanya. And he's given this initiation. And he's given menial services to do. His example throughout his entire pastimes is he has very menial services that he's given. And my Guru Maharaj says he never complains. He does these services with all his heart and he just continues to do them. He never says, can I do something else? Can I please focus on anything else? He just continues to do his service to the best of his ability. He's given the menial service to bring water, jugs of water, pots of water for the service of Shri Krishna and his Guru Maharaj. And it's said that he would get so absorbed in bringing water that he wouldn't even keep a record of how many jugs of water he brought. Now, when I think about this, I think about myself. Would I be able to follow in the footsteps of such a great devotee? Just in doing your service and not even keeping track I find myself trying to keep track of how many lectures I've given over every other week. I'm like, let's count it up and just, give a little pep talk to myself about how great I am. What a good job I've been doing. Shyamananda Pandit didn't even keep track of how many jugs of water he was bringing. He was so absorbed in the pastimes of Sri Krishna, in thinking about Krishna. Can I say that I've been so absorbed in my service that I'm not even keeping track anymore? This is the goal. One day. So he was so absorbed in bringing jugs of water, and he would carry them on his head. And he would be so absorbed in thinking about Krishna that it was saying that he would get wounds from all the constant rubbing. Now, those wounds became open wounds, which then got infected with worms, which I also had the same face when I was listening to this pastime, which kind of looked a little bit like, ugh. And he was so absorbed in the service that he didn't care about the wounds, and he didn't even notice the worms. Now, I can only imagine that there must have also been a certain aroma that was emanating if it was infected and with worms. So one day, as he was going to see his Guru Maharaj, he puts down the jug. And as he puts down the jug, a worm also falls. His Guru Maharaj is thinking, what's this? And he looks as Shyamananda Pandit pays his obeisances, and he thinks, he's got these wounds and it's infected now. Shyamananda, what's happened? Shyamananda hardly notices. And his Guru Maharaj is so pleased that he feels such a surge of devotion within his own heart, thinking of how wonderful his disciple is. Now, I'm so grateful that the goal is not imitation, because I can't imitate that. But I can follow in the footsteps of the mood. I'd like to make my Guru Maharaj that proud of his disciple. And that's enough. It's enough for me to say, I hope to one day make my Guru Maharaj that proud. And luckily, imitation is not the goal. So his Guru Maharaj, feeling such immense joy and gratitude for having such a disciple, he puts his hand on the head of Shyamananda and gives him all of his blessings. And through, it is said, a mystic potency, he cures Shyamananda of the wounds and the worms. Thank God. I was waiting for that moment, and I was listening. Indrajumna Maharaj gives such a wonderful lecture about the glories of Shyamananda Pandit. And he really draws this point out. So I was really kind of waiting with anticipation, with bated breath, like, please tell me he's going to cure him of the worms, of the wounds. Finally, when he does, I was thinking, thank you. So he cures him. And Indrajumna Maharaj, he makes a very poignant statement that all of these mystic potencies and siddhis are given to pure devotees, but they often don't show them. Pure devotees would rather be known for their preaching of the glories of Sri Krishna and the holy names than to be known for some mystical powers. But it should be understood that they have them. And sometimes on rare occasions, those mystic potencies will show themselves. And I remember thinking about these kinds of mystic potencies. And I remember I would reflect about how they would show up in the life of Srila Prabhupada in very unique ways. Being able to write volumes and volumes and volumes of books in such a short amount of time is nothing short of mystical. That's a mystical potency. I've written one book 2-3 years ago and still have been trying to write the second one. And in that amount of time, Srila Prabhupada would have written 9 volumes of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and gone on to write several volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam. translation, commentaries. My small book was 230 some odd pages long. That's just a fraction of a portion of one volume of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srila Prabhupada had realization after realization after realization pouring forth. It's unfathomable. Looking at the daily schedule of our acharyas like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Prabhupada, looking at the amount of time that they would not spend sleeping, looking at how they would maintain their lives on a strict diet, all kinds of things. These are mystic potencies. This is nothing short of miraculous. In such a short amount of time, circling the globe several times, keeping that schedule. This is the mystical potency of our Srila Prabhupada. Being able to give this nectar, unfailing, day in, day out, tirelessly, with health problems, surviving several heart attacks on a 39-day boat journey. I've never journeyed anywhere for 39 days, and I don't think I could. Just that is mystical. You know, you survive 2 heart attacks, no doctor. If I have a stomach ache, I'm like, okay, I have to go run. I have to find a doctor, and I have to find some sort of remedy for my ailment. These are heart attacks. Full-on heart attacks. And his medicine is to pray for the mercy of Krishna. Oh, Krishna, just let me stay a little longer. Don't take me yet. You gave me a mission. Let me just fulfill it. I had a neck pain just last week. And I was putting Tiger Balm on it and heating patches, and I was doing all kinds of funky stretches and trying to figure out how to fix my neck. But not one time did I say, oh, Govinda, you've given me a service. Just relieve the neck pain so that I can do my service. In fact, at one point, I was like, you know what? If the neck pain doesn't go, just take me now. You know, do your thing. Lord, I surrender to the neck pain. That's it. It was just a neck pain. I think I slept wrong. Srila Prabhupada, whole heart attacks. This is the mystical potency that I definitely don't have. So once again, thankfully, imitation is not the goal. Because in no way, shape, or form can I imitate, but I can appreciate. I can appreciate Srila Prabhupada's mystical potency. I can appreciate Shyamananda Pandit's mystical potency for being absorbed in the glories of Krishna Katha. So Shyamananda Pandit one day says to his Guru Maharaj, I yearn to go to Vrindavan. And interestingly enough, he had been serving for some years. Finally, his Guru Maharaj says, all right, I give you clearance, you can go. And he's able to go to Vrindavan, and Indrajumna Maharaj points out that these trips to the holy dham, even the worship of Radha Krishna, because when he gets to Vrindavan, he's very quickly initiated into the worship of Shri Radha Krishna. This worship of Radha Krishna, these trips to the holy dham, can't be taken lightly. Devotees have served and served for years just to get that yearning to go. And I was thinking that over 50 years ago now, on the day of Ram Navami, Srila Prabhupada at 26 2nd Avenue, he installed small brass Radha Krishna deities. And he worshiped them there at 26 2nd Avenue for some time. And then he took them into his room. he was saying that the space at 26 Second Avenue, and if any of you have ever been there, the space is quite small, it's narrow. And there wasn't quite enough room for those Radha Krishna deities to be worshipped. There was also Jagannath. And so Radha Krishna had their separate altar, but it was too close to the bathroom. And so he takes the deities up to his room and he worships them there for some time until places are moved, establishments get bigger, and then he brings them back out. Those same deities are worshipped today at the Brooklyn Temple on the altar of Shri Shri Radha Govinda Mandir. I have personally served those deities. I've personally put them to sleep, held them in my arms, looked at them, talked to them, spoken, had conversations, powwows. And when I was listening to Indradyumna Maharaj speak about how we can't take it lightly, how Shyamananda Pandit worshipped for so long, just firmly having devotion to his Guru Maharaj before he was initiated into the worship of Shri Shri Radha Krishna. And I was thinking, Srila Prabhupada did such an amazing thing. He brought this realm of Vrindavan all over the world. He gave us Radha Krishna. Once again, through no qualification of our own, but just through the mercy of the pure devotees. Such an incredible heart. Thinking, this is our wealth. This is the Lord of my life, our Prana Vallabha. And he didn't hoard him within his heart. You know, I often think if I had all this opulence and wealth and the treasure of divine love, I might, not tell everybody about it. Keep it to myself. For a rainy day, just count up my earnings. Srila Prabhupada gave it so freely. This is our fortune. This is our absolute blessing. And because I've been given free rein to go over time, I will one last pastime of Shyamananda Pandit, possibly the most famous pastime that Shyamananda Pandit is known for. We'll see how quickly we can tell it. Shyamananda Pandit was engaged in worshiping the pastime places of Shri Shri Radha Krishna. And like we said, he was given very menial services. So one of his menial services he was given was to sweep the dust of Braj. Pastime places. And he was sweeping them. And he did it happily, with such gratitude. Never asked for a different service. This is something that anybody could do. Like, you don't have to necessarily be so advanced to sweep. But he did it with all of his heart and soul. And he was a Pandit. He had been personally taught the pastimes of Radha Krishna. He was given unto the care of Srila Jiva Goswami. So he was personally taught the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. He was personally taught all of their lessons and realizations and the meanings of the Goswamis of Vrindavan, all of their purports he was taught. He knew them all, and yet his main service was sweeping. And he did it with such a grateful heart. My Guru Maharaj says his gratitude endeared him to the king and queen of Vrindavan so much that he got their unlimited blessings in such a unique way. One day, it is said that in their unmanifest pastimes, see, it came back, the unmanifest pastimes that are always occurring in Seva Kunj, it is said that nightly the rasa dance is occurring. So here's Shyamananda Pandit's connection to rasa dance and Vasant Ras. See, I brought it back. So they were engaged in dancing in the rasa dance, invisible to all. And so in Seva Kunj, it's forbidden. They have enclosures and gates, and they lock it up at night. No one is able to go there because it is said that Radha Govinda are performing their nighttime pastimes. No one should see them. And usually they're like dire consequences if you do. You'll go blind, you go mad, you go crazy, all these things, you lose your life. So many things. Shouldn't go there at night. So one night they were performing their pastimes. They were so engaged in dancing. The tempo had picked up. All the different gopis playing so many instruments, so many things were happening that an anklet slipped off the left foot of Srimati Radhika. This anklet named Manju Ghosh, a golden anklet studded with sapphires. And they go to sleep. They awaken. Srimati Radhika is quite bashful and quite shy, having awoken in the midst of not only Govindaji, but all of the gopis. They hurry home, and suddenly they realize that she's forgotten her anklet. Morning comes, and Shyamananda Pandit goes for his usual sweeping duties. But somehow he realizes that in that assembly in Sevakunj, there are more flowers scattered than usual. He thinks it's unusual, not normally this many flowers, but no problem. He sweeps. And he realizes that the birds are singing with such renewed vigor, with such enthusiasm. He thinks, oh, but he keeps sweeping. And as he's sweeping, and some sources say that he had like a spade that sometimes he would use if there was something stuck within the earth. He would dig that up and then sweep that area so that the soft lotus feet of Shri Shri Radha Govinda, their tender feet, would not be troubled when they come to dance nightly. So he would sweep, but something caught his eye. There was some brilliance underneath the sand, the soft dust in Braj. And he clears it away. And as he touches it with that spade, his spade was made of iron, but all of a sudden now it's solid gold. So he clears this away and he picks up this anklet. A golden anklet with blue studded sapphires. And not only is this anklet the most gorgeous anklet he's ever seen, but it's also emitting a fragrance. Says he presses this anklet to his face, his eyes, his nose, his mouth, his chest. This anklet is the most amazing thing he's ever seen. He ties it up in his dhoti, again, corner. Thinks I have to keep it safe. Some sources say he takes it back to Jiva Goswami. Some sources say on the way taking it back, he meets a young woman. And she seems to be engaged in searching for something. He says, oh, what are you looking for? I've been here performing service, sweeping. I might know what you might be looking for. I've seen everything in this area. She says, my sister dropped an anklet. Have you seen one? And Shyamananda Pandit is a little skeptical. What sister? She says, I have a sister. And she has dropped an anklet, and it's such an ornamental anklet. It's her very favorite. Shyamananda Pandit, he looks at this young girl and he says, but you don't look so rich. And she says, hey, Baba, I might look poor, but we still have ornaments. He says, I want to see your sister myself. Then I'll judge. I'll be the judge of if she could have possessed an anklet with such opulence. Lalita is this girl that he has met on the road. And many sources say now Lalita is quite hot-tempered. She's got quite a passion. And so now she's getting a little irritated thinking I should have been back by now, but now this one Baba is troubling me. But no problem, fine. If you say this is the stipulation for giving back the anklet, I will take you. She says, but first, you have to take a bath in this special river. He says, what kind of girl is this that I have to take a bath to go see her? So who is this that I have to take a bath? She says, look, you have to take this bath, go, take a dip, and then when you come out, then you'll understand. He enters into the water, and when he comes out, he's no longer Shyamananda Pandit at this point. He's still Dukhi. He's given the name Dukhi Krishna Das by Hridaya Chaitanya. So Dukhi Krishna Das comes out of this river, and he's now in the form of a young girl, and he falls unconscious. Lalita is quite amused, but she wakes him up. Look, we have things to do. So please. So she takes him into the assembly of gopis. And in that assembly, he sees Srimati Radhika. Next to her is Vishaka Devi. And Srimati Radhika looks at this beautiful little girl and says, oh, Kanaka Manjari, welcome home. Let me just pause for a second while my whole heart jumps out of my chest. One day, can we imagine our very own fate? One day, our chanting, our bhajan, our worship of Sri Krishna, heartfelt, will bring us to the place where we will hear our own name. And the gopis say, welcome home. So they say, Kanaka Manjari, welcome home. And this Kanaka Manjari falls unconscious again. Much to the pleasure of all of the gopis. But they awaken this Kanaka Manjari. And Kanaka Manjari sees Srimati Radhika and he says, oh, now he understands. Lalita says, here's my sister. Now do you think she could be in the possession of this opulent anklet? Kanaka Manjari has no doubts. Please take your anklet. Please have it. It is yours. And many sources say that at that moment, Sri Radhika takes the anklet. Oh, thank you. I've been looking for this. My very favorite. And she presses the anklet to the forehead of Kanaka Manjari, and it leaves a very unique tilak. And she says, oh, Kanaka Manjari, please keep this tilak always. Never remove it. And it's said with her very own hands, she takes camphor, sandalwood paste, and saffron, and she grinds it with moonstone. And she uses that to make a mark, a dot, a little bindi right in the center forehead. And she tells Kanaka Manjari, now it's time for you to go back. Kanaka Manjari says, how? How can I leave you? Why would I ever want to leave you? Please, I need to stay forever. She says, you have to go back. But from this day forward, you shall be known as Shyamananda. Because you have given such ultimate bliss and pleasure to Shyama, Srimati Radhika, you will be known as Shyamananda. And the name Shyamananda is mystically inscribed on the chest over the heart of Shyamananda Pandit. And she says, because you don't want to go back and you need a reminder, I will give you a gift. And she manifests a beautiful, sweet little deity of Shyam Sundar. She says, you worship this deity of Shyam Sundar, and in this way you will always be with me. She gives that deity to Shyamananda. Shyamananda Pandit comes back to external consciousness. He's back in his male body, back in Sevakunj. And he is kind of forbidden from telling anyone about these proceedings. He goes to Jiva Goswami And Jiva Goswami sees this new tilak, and he sees the name of Shyamananda inscribed over the heart of Shyamananda Pandit. He says, what is this? But Jiva Goswami is forever engaged in the pastimes of Shri Shri Radha Krishna. And so he also understands what has happened. And he embraces Shyamananda. Some say he embraces Shyamananda. He smells his head like his own affectionate child. He kisses him on the forehead. He says, how fortunate are you? I never want to leave your association. You are so fortunate. You have seen Srimati Radhika and you have been so dear to her that she herself has given you the name Shyamananda. But Jiva Goswami is forbidden from telling anybody about this too. Word spreads that Dukhi Krishna Das has taken a new name, Shyamananda Pandit. And he's wearing a very unique tilak. Doesn't look like any of our Gaudiya Vaishnava tilak. Sridhar Chaitanya hears of this and he's quite angry. He thinks, I've given everything I can to my disciple. Wants to make sure his disciple's not veering off into some unventured speculative path of worship. Says now he's taken a new name. What is this? Finally, he sees Shyamananda. He says, what are you doing? How could you have done all of this away from my supervision? I've tried to give you everything. And now you've gone far ahead and beyond your spiritual master. This is not done. Shyamananda Pandit bitterly weeps. He cries. He says, Guru Maharaj, I don't know what to do. I will follow whatever you want. Whatever decision you think is right, you tell me. And so Hridaya Chaitanya makes the decree. You should remove this unorthodox tilak this moment. Go back to your other name, Dukhi Krishna. Many sources say that Shyamananda Pandit himself tried to remove the tilak. Some sources say that Hridaya Chaitanya tried to remove the tilak. But no matter how much he rubbed and rubbed the forehead of Shyamananda Pandit, that tilak shone brighter and brighter. He tried to put new tilak, new sandalwood paste, nothing worked. He tried to rub away the name of Shyamananda Pandit, nothing worked. Hridaya Chaitanya was baffled. And it says that in a dream, Sri Krishna, Shyam Sundar, appeared to Hridaya Chaitanya and he said, what are you doing? How could you have injured me so greatly? Hridaya Chaitanya said, my Lord. Hridaya Chaitanya was worshipping the Lord. Krishna Balaram were his Ishtadevs. He would worship the Lord in the form of friendship. He said, my Lord, I've worshipped you my entire life and now you've appeared before me. He says, but what have you done? You have made me sorry at heart. My Lord, what do you mean? He says, you've tried to control Shyamananda Pandit. Shyamananda Pandit was given this name by my Srimati Radhika herself. He was given this tilak. This tilak is the mark of her anklet. This tilak is the mark of her divine footprint on his forehead. Do you know why that anklet that she lost was so favorite? Was such a favorite of hers? It's because it was mine. She wears my anklets, Manju Ghosh. And that's why that anklet was her favorite. That anklet that he found was the dearest thing to her heart. You've tried to remove this pastime from his life. This isn't right. So, Hridaya Chaitanya wakes up. He calls for Shyamananda Pandit and he embraces him. He says, no, you are my teacher. How can I say that I am your guru? Really, you are my spiritual master. And the two of them together, they cry and they cry. Srimati Radhika says that anyone who has the divine darshan of that deity of Shyamananda is liberated, along with 10 generations, forward and backward. Indradyumna Maharaj has said for us to put this on our bucket list, our transcendental bucket list of things to do if we ever get the chance to go to Braj, go to the temple of Shyam Sundar and take darshan of this very small deity. To the left side of the large Shyam Sundar deity is the small deity of Shyamananda Pandit. Or, because it's Ekadashi, and because we have the internet, we can do amazing things. So let's see. This is the deity of Shyam Sundar that was worshipped by Shyamananda Pandit, given to him, manifested from the very heart of Srimati Radhika. And if you can see, he has a very unique tilak. That is the tilak of the Shyamanandis. Shyamananda Pandit, he becomes a very renowned preacher himself. And people go mad to hear the pastimes of Shri Shri Radhakrishna from him. And they all become known as Shyamanandis, those followers of Shyamananda. And they all have that very distinct tilak. So it goes almost to the tip of the nose, no tulsi leaf at the end, very straight up. And you can see how it could have been the mark of her anklet. So this is the symbol of the footprint of Srimati Radharani on the forehead of Shyamananda. So this is our blessing for all of us today. We get this darshan, this wonderful darshan, which has the power to amazingly liberate not only us, but generations of our family members along with us, both sides. This is the mercy that we get from remembering the pastimes of the Vaishnava Acharyas. I'm so grateful that Shri Shri Radha Murlidhar has chosen me. And I said, please come, talk about our people. It makes sure that I start every single Ekadashi off in the absolute best way, in the association of so many devotees, speaking the glories of so many devotees, somehow endearing ourselves to Shri Shri Radha Murlidhar and Shri Shri Radha Govinda. So thank you very, very much. I look forward to being with everyone the next Ekadashi so that we can have more of these exciting pastimes. That's just the tip of the iceberg of the pastimes of Shyamananda Pandit. He has so many amazingly incredible adventures that I would love to talk about, but there'll be another day. There's so many Ekadashis that come up and there'll be so many innumerable pastimes that we can talk about. So we'll circle back around and we'll tell more stories of the pastimes of Shyamananda Pandit on another Ekadashi. Thank you so much. I'm praying for your blessings and your good wishes so that somehow or other I can follow in the footsteps and make my Guru Maharaj proud. Always tell the fun adventures of Shri Krishna Chandra and all of his friends. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Haribol, thank you so much, Acyuta Gopi.
That's okay.